Hello, I'm Natasha. Welcome back to the channel. And following the victory of Donald Trump in the US, I feel inspired to talk about the UK, its problems, and how we can solve them. I don't know why, but his victory has inspired me to believe that the situation in Britain could hopefully change for the better in the near future. Goodness knows we need someone in power like Trump to sort out the UK. But I think one of the main problems facing the UK is the fact that successive governments never consider the long term future of the UK. They are just looking at the short term, introducing policies which will just allow them to keep winning elections rather than effectively planning and thinking about the future of Britain. Take, for instance, the NHS. Both Labour and Conservatives just think that throwing more cash at the NHS is going to solve the issues it faces. Whereas I think that the NHS needs to be completely overhauled. We need to identify where the weaknesses are, how we can address them, how we can make it a more efficient and effective service. Then take, for instance, immigration. The UK is a small country and we already have a population of around 70 million or more by some estimates. Now, we constantly hear from politicians on the right and left that we need foreign workers to work in agriculture, healthcare, social care, and other sectors. These workers are addressing short term needs. But if we look at the long term, if we know the number of work visas that we approve each year, why is it that we are not working with regulators of the sector to estimate how many workers we need in particular sectors in the long term, and then making sure that we are training enough people to fulfill these positions internally within the UK, reducing benefits, encouraging people with incentives to get trained in sectors we need for the economy? Do we actually truly understand the financial impact of people coming to the country? Just to take an example, if we have, say, a healthcare worker coming across from India, yes, they are fulfilling a gap that we need there, but guaranteed they will be using the NHS. If they have children, then they will be sending them to school in the UK. These are all extra costs which I'm not sure are fully considered by the government. I also do not think that the government has assessed the cultural impact of importing people on such a large scale to the country. Just giving people a British passport does not mean, in my opinion, that they are British. And I do not think that the government has considered how to truly integrate people into British society. I also don't think that the government has considered the environmental consequences of mass migration or the sustainability of it from the point of view that England is a small island. I mean, take a country like Australia, it is 32 times bigger than the UK. Yes, yet it has less than half the number of people living there compared to the UK. How can the UK, environmentally speaking, cope with the number of people that are coming to the country? I'm also very interested in the economy, and I wanted to talk about the long term effects of selling off British companies. I read a very, very good book called Britain for Sale: British Companies in Foreign Hands, The Hidden Threat to Our Economy by Alex Brummer. And it was a really excellent book, and it made me realise how many poor decisions have been made in the UK. Now, I encourage any British patriot to read this book to understand how much of Britain has been sold off to foreign owners. And just to give an example, when Cadbury's was acquired by Kraft, Prior to its acquisition, it was paying £125 million a year in tax. But when it moved to Zurich, this bill decreased by half or more. When Boots was taken over by an Italian pharmacy company, the 89 million tax bill it was paying shrunk to 9 million. Recently, we had the post office being bought out by a Czech billionaire, and surprise, surprise, 115 branches are due to be closed down in the UK. According to data from HMRC, tax receipts from the part of the economy affected by overseas takeovers has remained flat or declined, and therefore the shortfall needs to be made up elsewhere, i.e., personal tax, national insurance, and VAT. We are also obviously losing skills in essential sectors by selling off British companies to foreign investors who may also move production and research and development abroad. The book, Britain for Sale, goes into a lot of detail about the different industries which have been sold off in the UK: the IT sector, car manufacturing, ports, bridges, the music industry, energy, water, and obviously the latter does bring into question issues regarding our political and energy security. What happens when an international company has a squeeze of supply, for instance? We all know from COVID that supply chains can be very fragile, and it is my opinion that Britain does need to be food and energy secure. I personally don't think that the recent changes to inheritance tax for farmers is going to help the UK to become food sufficient. This is, in my opinion, a disastrous policy for the British government to introduce. I also think that we should be very concerned that the path Britain has taken has not been taken by countries like Germany, France, and the US. They regard it to be in their public interest to ensure certain critical industries remain in national hands. We need to make sure that British companies remain British, and we should encourage British manufacturing, providing tax breaks, for instance, to companies who produce in the UK. I know that this is something that Donald Trump introduced in the US. Lord Sterling, one of Thatcher's admired businessmen, said that he could think of no recent example where there has been a long-term modelling of the impact of a particular decision to sell off a British company. Clearly, we do not have the right people in power in the UK, and they have been inept in considering the long-term future of Britain in many areas. Indeed, I think a lot of Britain's problems are to do with a complete lack of foresight and planning, but we urgently need completely different people running the country. Let me know what you think in the comments below.